Thank you so much again for being with us. And this time around, we want to look at the education sector. We want to understand where is the problem in our education sector. And of late, we've seen a lot of efforts by government to ensure that our learners, people that go through our education system, are what the market demands. Acquire skills that can even see them through. Now, they want to look at a shift from traditional education to progressive learning. And joining me on set to discuss this is an education consultant, Paul Bernard Ntato. Bendera Ntato. Well, quite complicated there. But most welcome to the studio, and thank you so much for finding time.
Yeah, thank you so much, moderator. Yeah.
Now, first and foremost, for my audience to know who am I having, a brief background into this education, because you have so many consultants actually. But why do you feel that you're that consultant who is worth discussing this topic?
Thank you so much, moderator. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome all the viewers who are with us this morning. Just to go straight to your question, the consultants that I major to is in concept-based inquiry. And I took the initiative to come back to Uganda so that I can put it back to the community, because I realized the government had seen the importance of making a shift from the traditional of learning to the progressive one.
Now, that brings me very fast. When you talk about traditional way of learning and then progressive one, define these two.
Thank you. Just in simple terms, the traditional way of learning is what has been happening in Uganda for all years. I can say since I was born. This is the learning that happens in class, but it is solely in the hands of the teacher. But progressive learning is about learning by doing. So progressive learning is majorly learner-centered.
Now, when you talk about progressive learning, moving away from the traditional learning, we've seen our government try to go in that direction. Yes, not so much, not so longer time when we saw our government introduce the lower secondary curriculum. Are we on the right course?
Yes, we are. We're on the right course. In fact, that's what we should have done so many years back. But the issue comes on the implementation part of it. When it comes to the implementation part of it, I don't think we're on the right path. Yeah.
Now, when you talk about that, it takes me to ask, education happens when there's an instructor or a teacher, the formal education we are talking about.
Exactly.
But let's first examine, do our teachers even understand the purpose of education that people entrust our children with to pass on the progressive that you're saying? Do they understand the purpose of education?
From the experience I have with the majority of our teachers, I think not. Why do I say this? When you look at some of the great education philosophers like Martin Luther King, John Dewey, and Paul Freire, when you compare what their perception for the purpose of education is, they both talk of education that promotes creativity, critical thinking, and analytical thinking. But when you look at our education system here in Uganda, I don't see any of this happening anywhere.
Why don't you say that it promotes critical thinking?
It doesn't, because like I said in the first, traditional learning is about the teacher coming to class, then passing over the information he or she has to the learners. But that is not what education is about. For us, we believe that a teacher is supposed to draw knowledge from the learner, not to impart knowledge. That's why we said that when you are talking of resources that are used in education, a teacher is not a resource. The purpose of the teacher is to facilitate learning, but not to pass off information. So what happens majorly, the teacher comes to class with the facts that he has carried, imparts in the kids after the lesson has ended, then it goes. I was very much disappointed yesterday. I was watching any TV, and it was at around, I think they have a program called Face to Face, children's quiz. But all the questions that the moderator was asking, I can say they were just a mess. Most of the questions were factual. They were asking the kids, these were primary 7 kids who are going to sit for PLOE in the next 2 months. But the question, one of the questions they asked to them, if they were able to name the district where the official state house of Uganda sits. I wondered why a moderator would bring up such a question to candidates who are going to sit for examination. So what we are saying in progressive learning is that learning must be conceptual, but our learning is majorly content-based. We do not promote or we do not teach concepts in our education system here.
So now, if we are to move into progressive education, which indeed our viewers, our government is now targeting. That's why you're seeing a review of the lower curriculum, the primary curriculum. That's why you see initiatives right now, which some of our teachers are finding hard. This continuous assessment. It is now becoming also a challenge. When UNEB said the deadline to submit this is that, and you would see the panic and all that confusion. How should we move forward? Because we have lamented. I think for the last 3 decades, I've heard people lamenting our education system, but it's only in the Bible where the book of lamentation carries meaning. You know?
Yeah.
You must move forward and find solutions to these problems. How best do you think, as a third world country, don't bring things of third world country, can we improve our education system?
In fact, we can, because I see there are a lot of efforts by the government to invest in education. When I look at the budget for every financial, there's a lot of money that is invested in education. But I don't know, quite often I've heard most people, when it comes to such issues, and the first blame, they cast it on the government. The government is not doing that, the government. But I don't think it's entirely the government to blame. Because if the government is investing in money, how do you say the government is not concerned with the type of education or the improvement that we need in education? So one, we also need to change our perspectives as citizens, every Uganda, that one I can say. Why do I say this? About 6 years ago, when I was out of the country, I realized that we have issues in our education system here. I contacted one of my friends in my district, who is a teacher, and I told him, I have a wealth of experience in what progressive learning is or what education should be, but I don't want to keep all this with me. I want to share it with people from my community, especially the teachers. I asked him, is it possible you can talk to the district education officer, set a date, I will be in the country between this time and this. I am going to hire a hall, I'm going to provide breakfast and lunch. People come and I make a presentation to them. I was disappointed when I was asked later that how much I would be paying for the teachers who were supposed to come for this training. So you can see that on the part of the teachers, also I think they're not very much committed. That they need to change. Because we say, if we look at one of the attributes of learner profile is being a lifelong learner. But most of our teachers think that because we went to the college and we graduated with our certificates and that's enough. It's not. Learning does not end. The government is putting in effort to make sure that just train. I know the biggest challenge on the part of the government is that resources are not enough. That's where the biggest challenge is.
Now, you're talking about government putting in money, but we have issues where people have to learn on empty stomachs. Where we have issues where a parent cannot even afford a school uniform. That is why His Excellency woke up and said, you can't chase a child to go back home because they don't have school uniform.
Exactly.
We have issues where even the least you would expect, fine, education is a right, a human right. Even all our constitution and all our protocols we've assented to as a country or ratified, it is a human right. But then why I talked about third world is I doubt if there's an amount of money that government can ever put in to transform this education system, and we see results when there is, could I call it, high levels of poverty?
You are very right. There are high levels of poverty, and this is something that I have always debated with my friends. Now, I thought when I present my arguments to, I don't want to use terms that will demean them, but when I go back to the village and I talk to those people in the village, I expect the reasoning, their reasoning to differ from the reasoning I get in here. You've talked about the issue of poverty. Poverty is a very difficult thing to fight. But what the government does is to try to fight poverty. Now, what do we do as human beings? I regret to bring this example, but I have to put it forward for the purpose of clarity. You said there are people who cannot afford to buy even food for their children. Even this is true. When I go back to my village, I find somebody saying my child has been chased from school just because he's not able to raise money to pay to the school to buy porridge and whatever. But is this entirely a government's program? That's where my concern is. Because, Mr. Modota, I would ask you, if I'm here, I'm not able to pay 700 shillings for the entire term to the school for my child to take porridge. After 2 years, my income has not changed. I don't expect anything to change. But I have 4 children. But after 3 years, again, my wife is pregnant. I want more children. So how are we going to continue casting all the blame on the government? We also have a role to play. I know the government has got the role to play, like these issues of corruption and the rest. It's the role of the government. But still, we also have a role to play when it comes to corruption. I want to give you an example. Most people have a perception that whatever happens in the government, the top leadership of the government is aware of it and what's happening. I want to say it's not true. Somebody was giving an example that, you know, now this government, blah, blah, is putting in people, this kind of people in government and whatever, so these people have crippled this. Just 2 months ago, I wrote a letter to the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Education. I was making a proposal. If there can be any way we can enter an agreement and have training to teachers. When I submitted my letter, I took 3 days to go back to make a follow-up. When I went back, the PS had already acted and forwarded the letter to the commissioner in charge of teacher training. Before I could move to the commissioner, I received a call from the secretary. We are calling you, come here and discuss with the commissioner on these things. So you can see the level at which those top management people can expedite things. But when it reaches somewhere, it cripples, then we say, it's the government which has failed this. I don't entirely agree with that. I know there are areas where the government needs to be more serious, like when it comes to the issue of corruption. But for us as individuals, we also have to. I've given you an example of the teachers. Our teachers don't want to move from where they are to the next level. That's a very big challenge. And if we can have teachers who will appreciate the fact that learning does not stop, I think we can move this country to a different level in education.
Well, we are discussing how best can we shift from traditional education to progressive learning. Now, you may ask yourself, when we talk about progressive learning and then traditional, the way we've been used to, sometimes people call it cram work, where the learner's mind is not disturbed so much to think, but disturbed to remember. You know, when they give you an exam, and you have to remember what the teacher taught you, and then you pass. But it is not where there's a problem ahead of you, and you have to trickle your mind to solve that problem. Now, how do we get to that type of education? My guest here believes it's not only money that government can put in. We all have a responsibility as citizens, as in the education sector. But before I go to some of the messages that are coming in, please keep them coming in. That's the number on your screen. Send me a WhatsApp message or a text message on that same number, and I can assure you I'll read them out and my guest will be responding to that. Well, there's a thinking that we've failed to come up with what is Ugandan in our education system. That even when we go to these new curriculums, new development, still you'll find, is it UNICEF, UNESCO somewhere, that what we've failed to understand, what education do we need as a country. Someone was giving me an example. When you go to China, what is the education focusing on? When you go to North Korea, what is the education focusing on? When you go to India, now very good into ICT and all that, that as a country, what is it that we need and where should our education focus and follow?
Thank you, moderator. Right now, most education curricula are focusing on what kind of student should a society have. There is a program called International Baccalaureate, and they came up with something called the attributes of the learner profile. One of them is being internationally minded, being a risk taker, caring, those kind of things. Now, is it necessary for Uganda to go global? The answer is yes. So, if it is necessary, what should the government do? There are things that we need to borrow from other countries and bring them here. There is an examination called the Program for International Student Assessment. It's offered by about 79 countries. And the countries you've mentioned, China, India, Korea, and whatever, they are part of that examination that they do. It's assessed after every 3 years, and here they test the life skills before the student goes to sit for what you would call our examinations here, which are very rare. But the problem we have here in Uganda is that education has been commercialized. Why do I say this? There are so many private schools that have cropped up, and there's a lot of competition. But this competition is not about the quality of students that they produce, but it's about the numbers that they produce such that they can get more to earn money. That's where the biggest problem is. So most schools are not focusing on studying and this kind of thing. Last year, the final examinations came when I was around, and I was watching TV. You do hear that a school in Mbale sat 300 students and all of them passed in first grade. In the history of formal education, it has never been possible that a teacher goes to class, even if you have 10 students, you teach them and they all pass excellent. What miracle is here in Uganda that a teacher goes to class of 100 students, teaches them in 40 minutes for a number of lessons in a year, and they all understand and pass? It's not possible. Why do I say this? Because the only method of teaching used in Uganda is the lecture method, where a teacher comes to class with the information, he talks to the kids and gives examinations. But in education, we have different categories of learners. We have the visual learners, those who learn by seeing. We have the auditory ones, those who learn by hearing. Then the kinesthetic, those who learn by working. So how do you tell me that all these students in all Ugandan schools are auditory learners? That when teachers go to class, they express whatever they hand, and the children grasp all this. And it's not possible. It's not possible. There's something wrong with our education system. I want to give you an example. This is a live example. I don't want to mention the country for fear of being reprimanded. I took my daughter to a school, third term. They give her an interview, she passes, completes P1, then goes to the next class. The first term of that year, the teachers call me and tell me, we have a policy here, we have these pamphlets, you buy for the child that's at home, then you bring. I said no, because when I looked at them, I looked at the information and I said no. I said during my free time, I sit with the kid and help her to work out ABCD. The teacher kept quiet. At the end of the term, my child who went to class in the position of fourth, much as I'm not interested in positions, that first term, she became the 17th. They did the test. After 1 month, she was the 28th. The next time, she was 34th out of 52. I asked my wife, what's going on? Because we know the potential of our child, and position-wise, she's declining, but I told her I want to go back to the teacher. When I went to the teachers, they told me, you need to buy this pamphlet for the kid. I told my wife, I'm going to buy this pamphlet, but I'm going to challenge the teachers. So when I bought these pamphlets, they told me, the child is at home, brings to school, we mark and takes. So what I did, I took these pamphlets home, but I didn't give them to my child. I would get a cousin of the same age. That's the work I take to school. They mark. When they did the next test, my child was the fourth. I can tell you, if I mention this school, you can wonder. It's one of the best schools in the country I'm referring to.
You're just reminding me of an incident I had from one school of a relative where she was on coaching. Then I changed school. But after 3 weeks, the teacher called saying, I've not sent coaching money. That's like, well, this child is no longer in that school. I transfer the child to another school.
Yes.
So these do happen somewhere, somehow. But you see, education happens in 3 areas. We have the home, the community, and school. If you are to have a well, fully packaged person who has gone through the education system, when I was growing up in our community, they would tell you if you do certain things for people they believed were learned. They had a saying, "Yeisizanga atasoma." Because away from good grades, there's what was expected. You're a problem solver in the community. Let's go to Gendewa Musomesa. Let's go to the teacher. They would talk to Gendewa doctor because they believe someone has gone through education. It's not only, they have not only acquired knowledge, that they have a first class, a first grade and all that, but they are exposed. Education has looked at the whole being, and they can be referred to, consulted and all that. Today I have people with very good grades. I must say Ugandans are performing very well. We have schools where you will get out of 100 students at the end of even first class degrees in Marquette. These days I'm getting shocked. Others getting a first class should even be retained to teach.
And that's the mistake.
But today a first class, maybe we're a bit denser and these children are very bright.
Yeah, and Mr. Madota, one thing that I want to inform the viewers, that's one of the mistakes that our country does. That a child who performs very well, in fact, there are those who are in school teaching, but they are not teachers. It's just because they performed very well in math at school, so they had to call them here. But that's not about teaching. You've talked of learning happening at home, at what? For us in the IB program, when you're talking of a learner, we don't refer to somebody who comes to class and sits a student. A learner is any member of the school community, a parent, a gardener, a watchman, whatever. Because when you're talking of all these attributes, we're talking of caring, being, if you're a caring person, you must be able to demonstrate social skills. So you cannot say that it's only the teacher who is required to demonstrate those skills, but the watchman doesn't, or any other person. So we have got a challenge there. We are, at some level, we are teaching what is not relevant. I have just mentioned some of the things here. You are asking a primary 7 kid to name the district where the official state. How conceptual is that? What is this going to help? Fine, we need to know this information, but really, is it conceptual? Is this information going to help this child when he or she grows up? So my encouragement to the schools, to the government, and any member of the society is that we must focus on teaching concepts as opposed to content.
Well, let's look at some of the texts that are coming in, very interesting, but please, let's keep them a bit shorter, kindly. Make them short so that we can read them very quick. I'm Andrew Opolot, watching from Naguru. We need to first remove that inherited European curriculum. However, the learner-centered method, like discussions are, role-playing requires a lot of time, but the time allocated for a lesson is too small. Just imagine 40 minutes. It can't be enough to the learner-best method. He's talking about time. Then someone asked, thanks for the program. What does the education consultant say about lack of textbooks, e.g. Christian religious education, and other learning materials for lower secondary new curriculum, yet government wants teachers to implement new curriculum in their schools? That is the Andrew Musinguzi, Kagadi district. Thanks for the show, but remember that as much as you can blame teachers for not going for further studies, there are teachers who have it but no motivation at all. The government has totally ignored the welfare of teachers. quite long one, but let me see if we can have... No, just keep them a bit short. Let's first go with those.
Thank you so much. I will start with the issue of time. It's true the 40-minute lesson might not be adequate. And this takes me back to where I started from, that have different categories of learners. These 40 minutes can be enough for some students, and for some it might not be. What we need to do, like you said, learning should not only happen in school. That's where that's the only way we can fight time. Because I want to give an example. What our teachers do is going to class, maybe is a mathematics teacher is going to teach the concept of area. In fact, they don't teach concept, because the teacher will come and read whatever he has in the text and it goes off. But if I'm going to teach the concept of area, this doesn't have to start in school. In Singapore right now has one of the best education systems they are using in math. It's called CPA. It's the concrete, pictorial, and abstract. So what they do, if you're going to teach math, you start with the concrete. What do I mean by this? I'm going to class, I'm going to teach area. What do I need to do? Or I'm going to teach perimeter, that kind of thing. But what perimeter am I going to teach? I'm going to teach perimeter of maybe a rectangle or a square. These objects are at home. Every child has got something that is rectangular at home. So what progressive teachers do, they don't come to class and tell the students this is what you're going to do. They may ask them, for example, if there are these younger ones, can you draw any pictures of any object that are at home? They are going to draw the television, they are going to draw these phones, and they come. So when they come to school tomorrow, they are going to start discussing this. What this one has drawn, something rectangular, this one has drawn the same. So you may group them and start asking, what is the relationship between your shapes? They will tell you, mine has got 4 sides. He also says the same, they have the same length perhaps. So you've started the concept of area from home, if you bring it here in school. So the issue of time is not enough, but if we can spread learning across, not only to happen in the classroom, then the issue of time will be addressed. In Uganda, lessons start as early as 6. Some start as early as 5, up to 7 in the morning. I can tell you, I have taught for about 17 years in different countries in the world. I have never taught any class beyond 8 hours. Lessons start at 8 in the morning, at 2. They are done. And that is the system. How do you tell me that time for them is enough, and here where we start from 5 in the morning up to 6 is not? The problem here is that we are teaching content. We are pumping a lot. There's a theory that we call less is more and more is less. We teach a lot of things, but in essence, there's nothing the children come up with. While those friends of ours, they teach something small, but they go deeper. I want to give you an example, if time may allow. When I was with my daughter in Muscat, for us in international education, we don't teach these topics, and we have got, we call them transdisciplinary themes. Then you identify a unit the child is going to work on. So a child goes to class, and the theme is sharing the planet. Because when you talk of sharing the planet, there are a lot of things involved. So my child identifies and says, for me, the issue I want to explore, I want to investigate, is the issue of idling cars. There are parents who come with their cars, they leave them outside, but they leave the engine on for 2 hours. So the child wanted to investigate that. What effect does it have on the environment? So started collecting data. Now, mathematics has come in. That handling is doing statistics. How many vehicles? BMW.
All the trouble you're bringing is the comparison. We have a child who has never even had a chance to know of a car on idling system. But anyway, these are very different.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that example, then I can bring the traditional. What I was saying, this child is in that environment and is able to investigate that. But for us in teaching, we say the best laboratory is our local environment. Because what you teach to the students must be relevant to them and the society. So the children need to know what's around them. But our teaching here does not promote that. We don't teach things that are For example, if you are going to, we have got marine scientists. But you'll find that most of the marine scientists that we have in Uganda have not studied here, have gone somewhere. We have somebody is doing, I was asking somebody, for example, if you want to do research in this and whatever, we have got so many here. Mabira Forest is here, wind is there. In fact, the whites come here to do research here. Why do we send?
Well, I must let you go in the interest of time, but in just 1 minute, what is your last word?
My last word,
my viewers this morning.
Yeah, my last word is that I want the government to continue funding education so much, and I want also the teacher to have the initiative that if the government has not done this, I am able to come up with something that I can do. I recently wrote here a book. It's called the same, Competence-Based Learning, a Shift from Tradition to Progressive Learning. It has got all the answers to the questions the teachers have been asking about this new curriculum. I was talking to one head teacher who picked a lot of interest in it, but the head teacher's word was, can my teachers read? They cannot read. It says the resources are in school, but they are not willing to read, like I told you.
The reading culture.
The reading culture is not there.
Well, let me end at that. Of course, there is one person who once said, if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. And we've seen very many people who are gifted books, and there is a special gift inside. But at the end of the day, they never read. And when they discover there's something hidden in that book, they only regret. Sometimes even time has passed by. So we have so much, but let's keep hope alive. We'll be having you more to look at how best we can improve our education system. Ruben is here to take you through sports updates. See you in the next hour. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.